Hey everybody, Gary Edelman, American Battlefield Trust, and here I am in just one of my favorite cities in Charleston, South Carolina. And being here in Charleston is one of the thousands of places where you can engage with history and think about war's cost. People tend to think only about the dead of the Civil War or something like that, but there's a lot of other costs. Like I'm standing in front of the Mills House Hotel. Now, even if during the war the Mills House Hotel was barely spared, we'll flash some photos up here to show you, from a terrible fire that ripped through, even during a war, life marches on, and here it continues, and the Mills House gets damaged but not destroyed. But if you look a little further over in one of the photos, you can see a structure next to the Hibernian Hall you see there, just absolutely shell damage from Union forces that are shelling the city at that time. So there is damage to places like cities, there is damage to landscapes, there is all sorts of damage to those prisoners, the imprisoned, the wounded who have to live the rest of their lives. And then of course you have the dead on all of these battlefields that we help to preserve together. And then you have the cemeteries. The battlefields themselves are cemeteries, and then you have the cemeteries where you can go and reflect. And I'm bringing all this up because we are trying to save some land at 3 different battlefields where there was just an immense cost in human toll and otherwise. Let's bring on Chris White to talk about that.
Thanks, Gary. The American Civil War touched more than 10,000 battlefields with skirmishes, engagements, and large-scale battles across the United States. And we're concentrating on 3 pieces of property that are only 10 acres, but we have a 3-to-1 match. For every dollar that you're going to give, we can put $3 in. And we're going to try to preserve places like Corinth, Mississippi. Corinth has a tie here to Charleston because it was the only intersection of a north-south, east-west rail line in the Southern Confederacy, and that line would run from Mississippi out here to Charleston. But in the wake of the Battle of Shiloh, that small town is going to be ravaged by the war by 2 different battles, including one being a siege. Then in 1863, outside of Vicksburg, Mississippi, we have the Champion family who host the Battle of Champion Hill. It's an unwanted battle that takes place there on their property between the Union Army under Ulysses S. Grant trying to make its way towards Vicksburg, Mississippi, the key out there to the west, and John Pemberton, his defensive Confederate army, trying to hold back Grant as he moves from the south and engulfing Vicksburg. That's going to be the largest battle that took place during the Vicksburg campaign. But of course, the bloodiest piece of property that we will have associated with this cost of war saw war over 18 months, and that will be down at Spotsylvania Courthouse. From December of 1862 all the way up through May of 1864, it was known as a panoply of horror, a saturnalia of blood, a Golgotha, a biblical term for a place of skulls. Of course, the most famous action at Spotsylvania Courthouse was the Bloody Angle, which took place on May 12, 1864, and over 22 hours of sustained action, more than 17,000 Americans fell in an area that was dubbed later by the soldiers as the Bloody Angle. Today, we also call it the Mule Shoe. The area is so devastated that most of the population left Spotsylvania County and Fredericksburg City and do not come back until the 1950s. That's how long it takes to recover from that portion of the war. But we hope that you will come together with these 3 battles that we have that span 3 separate years of our American Civil War, 3 states, and they will produce between them 45,000 casualties. That's almost equal to the Battle of Gettysburg.
And thanks, Chris. We really hope that we can get together and get this thing done. To that end, we have put together a booklet called The Cost of War, a visual summary of Civil War devastation that goes through the landscapes, the dead, the wounded, the prisoners, as well as the cemeteries, and gives you a summary of these places that were photographed that let us better reflect, I think, upon these places that we all study and which seems to endlessly fascinate us. So click the post associated with this link. If you're able to get involved to the degree that you can get the Cost of War booklet, we hope you enjoy it. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Dan Davis behind the camera. And thank you all for your support of battlefield preservation.